In the last 12 months, I've sold over 6,000 products for a little over $700,000. In 2024, I ended up making $175,000 profit. I actually paid myself $130,000 in my pocket after reinvesting back into the business, into inventory, all expenses, like net cash flow in my pocket, $130,000. And I wanted to make a video where I break down the 10 things that my team and I look for before we buy an item from eBay to flip on Amazon. And it's very simple. Like if you're going to thrift stores, you're buying from a thrift store, you're bringing it home, you're inspecting it, you're prepping it, you're shipping it to FBA. If you're doing FBA, or maybe you're merchant fulfilling, and when it sells, you get paid. I'm doing the same exact thing. I'm just buying my used books and my new DVDs and maybe my tools or electronics, office supplies, video games, printers. Like I buy so many different niches. I'm just buying it on eBay. And then essentially the item either gets A, shipped to my house, or B, shipped to my prep center. Now it's mostly my prep center. They'll inspect it, they'll prep it, they'll ship it to Amazon FBA. It's very, very simple. There's no difference going to a thrift store and a library sale or garage sale versus eBay. It's just who you're getting the inventory from. So I personally like eBay because I can do it from home. I don't have to see the products. I don't have to touch the products because I use a prep center. There's millions and millions of products available at all times. Plus you can make best offers on eBay. Now, if you're wondering, I use a tool called Replen Catcher. Replen Catcher makes finding undervalued deals on eBay so much easier because instead of you having to manually look up every single item and every single UPC and trying to match it up to Amazon and figure out like if it's 50, 60, 70% ROI and the profit, this tool does everything. So it's like $30 a month. So, Replen Catcher is definitely a game changer, but I wanted to dive into the 10 things that my team and I look for before we buy an item. You're probably thinking to yourself, like, Steve, what's your buying parameter? What are you looking for? What's the ROI? What's your minimum profit? Like, what type of sell-through rate? Like, how do you avoid IP complaints? Like, how often are these items selling? Like, what if there's high return rates? Like, what if this? What if that? Like, what's your parameter? So I'm going to break that down in full in this video. So by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly how I'm sourcing all these items, how I flipped over 6,500 items last year for over $700,000, and how you can start doing this as well, even just a couple items a week, part-time on the side, or you can just go freaking crazy and start buying hundreds of items. So let's get into this video, smash that like button, and let's have some fun. All right, guys, so I'm going to pretty much rip through these 10 different things that my team and I look for, our buying parameter. And if you have any more questions, drop a comment down below and I'll definitely make some follow-up videos. So number one, $10 minimum profit, and that's after our $7 overhead. So we have about $7 overhead just to break even on a product. Like before we even freaking list and sell and, profit from the item, we have about $7 overhead. And I'll put some screenshots on the video right now from the last 30 days, give or take. We did about 70,000 in sales. I made about $14,000 net profit. And you might be wondering, like, $70,000 in sales comes down to net, like 14,000 net profit. Like that's crazy. Like you must have a lot of expenses. I do. If you want to be able to run this business and automate it like I have, where I only work sometimes an hour per week, you have to pay to play. So, my cost of goods is about 45% of my expenses, but then I have about $2,200 a month in virtual assistants, $800 to $1,000 for a prep center, bookkeeping, accountant, tools, software. So it all adds up. But you have to understand, I'm doing this on a much larger scale than most people, right? If you're going to do this on the side and, maybe you're just going to flip a couple of items, you don't have to have a $7 overhead. Maybe it's just $1 for supplies or, a couple bucks if you have a VA. But after my overhead and everything, $10 minimum profit. So we do not purchase an item to flip from eBay to Amazon without making at least $10 profit. So that's number one. Number two, and this is a very important buying parameter as well, we do not purchase an item from eBay to flip on Amazon if we can't make at least a 50% ROI, return on investment. So if we spend, let's just say $100 on a product, we want to make at least $50 profit after all expenses, after overhead, after Amazon fees, after everything, net. And the reason why is because sometimes shipments could get lost to Amazon. Maybe sometimes prices could tank. Maybe items get returned. We've baked all of the, the good and the bad into the equation. So for us, in order to have good cash flow and to be able to make around like a 20% net profit at the end of the day, we want to be at a 50% ROI, return on investment. So when we used to do 30, 35%, the cash flow wasn't really good. And I made a video recently, I think it probably already posted on the channel, that talks all about how to improve and manage your cash flow in your business. Definitely check that out if you haven't. But 50% return on investment is the lowest we typically go. Obviously, there's sometimes exceptions to the rule. If it's like a replen and we sell like a whole bunch of them and we find a great deal and we could just like maybe buy 10 at a time and send it in and we know it's going to sell within a couple of weeks and the refund rate is really low, there's obviously exceptions to that rule. But typically 50% minimum return on investment when we're flipping items from eBay to Amazon. The third buying parameter that we follow is when we're purchasing inventory to flip from eBay to Amazon, we typically want our items to sell within a month or less and no more than 2 months. Now, you have to understand, if you're going to thrift stores or garage sales, library sales, your cost of goods is so low, okay? So you're gonna cash flow like super easy. Like if you're new to business and new to e-commerce and you're only going to thrift stores and library sales and you're only spending a couple $100s a week on inventory or a couple $100s a month on inventory, you're gonna be like, this is silly. Like, why are the fees so much? Like, why does his profit go from 70,000 down to 14,000? Like, why does he need a 50% ROI? Like, what do you mean, Steve? Like, you could, like, some people make 40, 50, 60 grand in sales per month when you're doing online arbitrage, and they can't pay themselves anything because they're having cash flow issues because the cost of goods is much higher than thrifting. To make a long story short, you've got to get your inventory to move. And again, I made another video where I talk about how to improve your cash flow. There's like 7 or 8 things that I personally do to improve cash flow in my business, but we want our inventory to sell within 1 to 2 months. Now, how do you know if your inventory is going to sell within 1 or 2 months? Well, you can look at the sales rank, and that obviously differs per category. You can look at the monthly sales. You can look at Keepa to take a look at how often it's selling, the green drops. You can take a look at Keepa and you can see the buy box history, how often the buy box is rotating. I'm going to talk more about that in a couple of minutes. There's a lot that goes into it, right? But it really comes down to looking at Keepa, looking at the price history, looking at the offer count history. Is the offer count going up? Is it going down? Which I'm going to talk more about. And another thing is we're looking at how many items we have in stock. So if we know that a particular DVD only sells once a month, and if we have 2 in stock, we're not going to buy another one because that's going to hurt our cash flow. And we're just going to be holding on to inventory that doesn't sell within 1 to 2 months. So that's number 3. Number 4, we always make sure before we buy an item that the brand is not on the listing. When you're flipping items from thrift stores, garage sales, Amazon to Amazon, I mean, anything. It doesn't even matter if you're doing like traditional OA or wholesale, unless you have like permission from the brand. If the brand is on the listing, don't freaking sell the item because you have a much higher risk of getting an IP complaint, intellectual property complaint. And if you get these, it's going to hurt your account health. You can get suspended. You can get terminated. It's just something that you want to avoid right now. I have gotten IP complaints, and all because the brand isn't on the listing doesn't mean you won't get an IP complaint. You can check out a tool called IP Alert, which is helpful. But the big thing in number 5 is checking Keepa to make sure there's no sharp declines in the offer count. So if you go to Keepa, you can see the offer count, like a history of how many sellers have been on the listing. So maybe, you know, in March there was 6, in April there was 9, and then in May there was 1. All of a sudden it just dropped off, like it dropped off of a cliff, and maybe it's like not that fast of a seller. That's kind of a red flag because you're thinking to yourself, where did all the sellers go? Like, how did the sellers go from 20 sellers down to 1, and now there's only 1 seller on the listing? Is that the brand? Like, you want to be kind of wary of that, because if there's a huge offer count drop off, unless it's a really popular item, it could be a sign that sellers are getting kicked off the listing and possibly, you know, sellers are getting IP complaints. So that's number 5. The 6th thing that I look for, and this is important when it comes to our buying parameter, is we're making sure that we're buying items where the buy box is rotating. So essentially, you know, if you're new to my channel and maybe you don't know what the buy box is, that's the little buy it now button on Amazon. So say there's 10 sellers on a listing. If a customer clicks buy it now, who gets the sale? Or whoever Amazon is granting the buy box winner. Now the buy box rotates and it's a bit more complicated than that, but you can check Keepa and you could go into data, buy box statistics, and you could see if the buy box is rotating. For example, if there's 10 sellers on the listing, is Steve Rakin the only one getting the buy box, right? The buy it now, or is it rotating equally? You can use SellerAmp or you could use Keepa to look at the data to see if it's rotating. I don't want to jump on a listing, especially if Amazon's on the listing, which is a higher risk of getting an IP complaint as well, I've noticed. But if Amazon's on the listing, and I've said this in previous videos, sometimes Amazon's nice, sometimes Amazon's mean. What I mean is sometimes they share the buy box, other times they don't. In other words, sometimes Amazon shares sales with other competitors on the listing, or they don't. So you can go into Keepa and you can check to see if the buy box is being shared. So if we're going to be purchasing an item that we've never flipped before from eBay to Amazon, which is what I classify as a lead, then I'm going to want to go into the buy box statistics and make sure that it's rotating. Another thing you could do is you go into data, buy box statistics, and you could see the history of all the sellers on the listing and what they won the buy box at. And if there's a little check mark next to it, that means they're an FBA seller, and then you could see the price that they won the buy box. Now, it doesn't mean they won the sale for that price, but that that's the price that they were winning the buy box, because Keepa is scraping all this data and saving it in their database. So these are just really important things that we always look for to see if we're going to get sales, to make sure the buy box is going to rotate so we can move our inventory within 1 to 2 months, because we're spending up, about 45% of our expense is cost of goods. So we want to move our inventory. So number 6 was making sure buy box is being shared. And typically we're not jumping on listings with Amazon. Sometimes we do, but we really try to stay away from it. Number 7, we look at the amount of sales per month. Okay. So if you use a tool called SellerAmp, which I highly recommend, SellerAmp will actually share with you how many monthly sales a particular product or an ASIN is having. So you can see like, oh, this item is selling 5 times a month, 7 times a month, 9 times a month. Typically in my business, and again, I've sold over 6,500 items in the last year for about $700,000. Our typical flips are selling between 1 to 10 times a month. You might be thinking to yourself, 1 to 10 times a month, that doesn't seem very sexy. That doesn't seem like these are really fast sellers. No, we're not selling the super duper fast sellers. Why? Because we're flipping items from eBay. We don't have a good supply chain. We don't have, invoices that really Amazon's going to accept. So I've said this a million times, but people just don't listen. It just doesn't crack through their head, but I'm going to hopefully try to get this through to you right now. If you're going to flip items from eBay to Amazon, fly under the radar. People say all the time, oh, you're going to flip from eBay to Amazon, you're going to get kicked off, you're going to be gone in a month, in 2 months. 4.5 years later, $2 million in sales, $500,000 in profit. There's got to be something that I'm doing to be able to get away with this. And hundreds of other people are doing this as well. You just have to fly under the radar, right? And I'm not going to go into a whole tangent right now, because I tell you right now, the people that are getting kicked off of Amazon right now are a lot of the traditional online arbitrage sellers. So, but again, we'll talk about that in another story. But, sometimes we also buy products with no sales data, like maybe it's not tracking monthly sales. But if you take a look in Keepa in the middle chart, there's a subcategory ranking that some people don't look at. And sometimes the subcategory ranking has a bunch of sales, and maybe the item, like for example, Logitech is a brand that typically isn't tracked for some reason on Keepa, but you could see that the subcategory rank is dropping, like the green drops. This is what I'm doing. I'm like indicating the green drops on the chart. And if there's a lot of reviews and it's a popular item, but it's not being tracked, there's probably a good chance that it's selling. So we'll do test buys and experiment with things like that. Number 8, this is huge when it comes to our buying parameter, and something that we're always looking at. We're looking at the offer count. We're looking at, is the number of sellers increasing or is it decreasing? If you jump on a listing, I don't care if it's eBay to Amazon, if you thrifted the item, if you're doing traditional OA, if you buy an item and the offer count is skyrocketing, you're going to deal with price tanking. This is one of the reasons I love eBay to Amazon, is because typically the offer count isn't going through the roof, because we're buying items that are more rare, discontinued. You can't go to freaking Walmart or Target and scoop a million of these up on clearance. So all the bozos and clowns and the freaking Amazon idiots, yeah, there's a lot of them out there who buy products and sell it for a massive loss, like a freaking, I'm not even going to say. You can't really do that with eBay to Amazon, because you've got to use these softwares like Replen Catcher, and maybe there's only one available on eBay, or you got to make offers. It's a different skill. It's a bit harder, right? You can't just be a complete degenerate and go into Walmart and throw everything in your cart and count all your profits, and then you send it in and it just tanks and you destroy the market and blah, blah, blah. Like, that's what I love about eBay to Amazon. You don't really have to deal with that, but it could happen, especially if we're going after an item we've never sold before, where we don't have a lot of good intrinsic data, sales history, like from our own account. We're looking to make sure the offer count is steady or declining, or it's just going up a little bit. Number 9, this is huge. Before we buy an item, and this is really important if you want to improve your cash flow, I talked about it in the previous video. There's three or four things you want to look for, right, before you buy an item. Number 1, make sure it's not on your do not buy list. If you don't have a do not buy list, I don't know what you're doing, because when I didn't have one and we were just buying anything and everything and weren't double checking, and I know it takes a little extra time before you scoop up an item with Replen Catcher or whatever, we would buy a lot of items that would just constantly get returned or give us an IP complaint, or it was a high pricing error, or an item that just consistently got into stuck and stranded inventory. That's going to happen. You're literally going to buy items and they're just going to get stranded. They're going to get hit with high pricing errors. They're going to get returned all the time. You're going to get letters from specific brands threatening you, right? So you want to make sure to have a do not buy list. And before you buy an item, create a system with your team. If you guys want to hear more about this, I'm happy to make another video. I could dive deeper into this. Just make sure the item's not on your do not buy list, because if you're consistently buying items that get returned often, and you have to pay for shipping on returns, which sucks, and then ship back to your house, or you have to liquidate it, you lose out on your complete investment, your cost of goods you spent in the item, you're just losing a lot of money. You're killing your cash flow. So that's really important. And last but not least, okay, I talked about this before, go into Keepa, data, buy box history and not only look at the buy box statistics to make sure it's rotating, but take a look and see what other sellers are winning the buy box at, because you might use Replen Catcher and it might say, oh, you could sell this for 60, right? And SellerAmp, you might look and the lowest offers maybe at 63, and you might think, well, I could sell this between 60 to 63. No, you can't. Maybe you can't, because maybe people are pricing it stupid. You've got to look on Keepa and see, what has this item been selling for in the past? What have other FBA sellers been winning the buy box at? And again, if you go to data, buy box statistics in there, go play around in there. You could see the complete history, and you could change the duration from 30, 60, 90, a year, 3 years. See everyone on the listing, if it was FBA, what they won the price for. And that gives you so much more confidence, right? This is the sign for confidence before you buy an item. So many times, and I hate to say it because I've built Replen Catcher. Sometimes Replen Catcher will give me information that's not accurate. Same with SellerAmp. Sometimes Keepa draws a beautiful picture, but if you dive really deep into it, you're like, wow, that was just an illusion. So those are the 10 tips. That's pretty much like my buying parameter before I'm flipping items from eBay to Amazon, the things that we're looking for. If you guys have any questions, if you guys need any additional help, feel free to drop a comment down below. But with that being said, guys, happy sourcing, happy picking. If you guys want to start flipping items from eBay to Amazon, check out Replen Catcher. Free 14-day trial down below. If you use the coupon code REPLEN10, you can save 10% at checkout. And again, you can play with this for free for 14 days. Source a bunch of items, make a bunch of money, make 3-6 months worth of profit before you put $1 into Replen Catcher. I'm telling you, if you go and you look, it'll change the game. And Replen Catcher is awesome too, because you can integrate it with your Amazon account now, and you can block out all the items that are restricted. You could also see all of your replens, all of the items you sold before. You could see all of your orders that come in through Amazon, add them to your replens list. It's freaking insane how crazy Replen Catcher has gotten now. There was a user of Replen Catcher the other day and said, Steve, you've taken things to a whole nother level. They said they used to use the software Flipmine, and they're like, Steve, you've taken this thing to a whole nother level. It's like, what did he say? He's like, it's shooting fish in a barrel or something like that. I started laughing. It's just really, really easy now to source deals with Replen Catcher. So, you can literally make your money back. You can make what it costs to pay for Replen Catcher for the whole year. You can make that in a week. It's that easy now with eBay to Amazon. So, but don't take my word for it. Go check it out. Join the Replen Catcher Facebook community. You can see everybody in there crushing it. And yeah, much love, guys. Appreciate you. See you in the next one. Bye.